Welcome to this video, round 6 of the candidates tournament in Kanty-Mansisk in Siberia. I read that it's really cold there, so your kind of immediate idea about Siberia seems to be true at that time. Okay, so let's look at this game. Anand playing white against Karjakin. Anand obviously in great shape with +2. Leading the tournament. Karjakin is on -1, hasn't won a game yet, and yeah, it's not looking like his kind of ultimate breakthrough performance to get a match against the world champion. But let's see what happens in this game. Karjakin playing e4 as he usually does, and sorry, Anand playing e4. For Anand, it's also the usual move. I'm sorry. So this was right about it. Yeah, Anand playing e4, Karjakin e5, and we got a Berlin defense again. Nowadays, probably together with the Marshall, the main line against against the Lopez. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame that I mean, I understand why people play that all the time on top level, but wouldn't it be nice if someone would just play for once, like let's say f5 or something crazy like knight d4? Yeah, this is maybe too much to ask for, but there are some sidelines in the Rui that are really interesting. I mean, leading to a bit of a fight. Not that the Berlin is necessarily a very peaceful opening, but really all the time. Okay, well, this time Anand is allowing the main line. He goes for the end game, and
Check.
we get this end game position, very famously introduced to absolute top level chess by Kramnik in his match against Kasparov in 2000. Yeah, white has many possible setups here. A recent development is the move h3, not yet playing the knight to c3. This is having some small points. I guess if black now plays a move other than king e8. King e8 actually will lead to the old main line. Knight c3, king e8. This was the very old main line of this opening, even before the days when Kasparov had to face this as white against Kramnik. Besides that, there's this move, there's bishop d7, very important one. There's h6, many moves. h3 is a little move order wrinkle, but Karjakin is just playing king e8 anyway, and after knight c3 we get this known line. Here he plays h5. This is also a possible setup that black can choose. The pawn just goes to h5 to make it more difficult for white to play g4. The general idea for white in this structure is to use his 4 against 3 majority. He's got those 4 pawns against black's 3 pawns, and ideally white manages to advance those pawns, not allowing any sort of blockade, especially on the light squares. Here, the light squares is black's blockading point. And yeah, black in the long run wants to use his bishop pair. Very nice. And yeah, in some cases you can also play on the queen side. You have 4, let's highlight 4 against 3 on the queen side. But with this double pawn, it's not so easy to make a passer out of that. We see the struggle around those ideas now. Bishop f4, just developing. Bishop e7, rook d1, bishop e6. All this seems fairly logical to me. Yeah, now Anand plays knight g5, which is a direct approach. He wants to get the bishop pair, simply to not having to worry about that all the time. And black here has a choice. He can allow the trade on e6, or he can, allowing it and taking with the pawn, or he can also consider to take on g5, like that. The issue is, after the recapture, that it's not such a big deal actually that you have given up your bishop, your dark squared bishop. This is not such a big deal against the knight. From a strategical point of view, this is even quite okay. But it might be that in this concrete position you have a slight problem. You have played h5, and the bishop on g5 is sitting very nicely there for white, not making it so easy for black to coordinate his rooks. This place is obviously not on for the rook, and also rook d8 is not possible to exchange stuff. Black might play h4 here, but how do you actually continue from there? It's not so easy. I think black would happily trade this on g5 if he hadn't played the h-pawn to h5. Yeah, he went for rook to e6, to h6, sorry, to cover e6 and allow a recapture with the rook. And exactly that is what happens after rook e1, bishop b4, and now after this white takes, and now the rook can take on e6. This has been Karjakin's idea with rook h6. To look at those moves in more detail, after rook e1, bishop b4, yeah, white, if he wants to make any sort of progress, he needs to push on the king side at some point. Now he's got basically all pieces in play, and there's not much to play in terms of improvement. So he just goes for it with g4, and here takes on e6. Yeah, this position is in fact known. It has been played before, and funny enough, both players have some experience, especially Karjakin. He had this on the board 2 times, this position. In fact, even the upcoming moves up to rook d8 he had played before. On the black side, in this position, he had played knight d5 actually in a game against Caruana in 2012. The game ended in a draw, but white was certainly enjoying a bit of a pressure, so it was clear that some improvement would be helpful. And in fact, this rook d8 has been played not by Karjakin, by Grishuk. The whole world elite is playing the Berlin these days. Grishuk playing black in Moscow 2013, so this was an improvement. And the white player was Karjakin. So a very well-known position to both players. Karjakin, it seems, has come to the conclusion that this idea by Grishuk rook d8 leads to okay play, so he just goes for it here in this important game in the candidates. Note the clock times, both players playing quickly.
Check.
Anand now exchanged on d8. Karjakin recaptured. Yeah, note that it shows 2 minutes. Maybe he was getting some coffee. Rook h1 and now knight d5. So rook h1 is the rook d8 even was the novelty actually. Karjakin himself, instead of exchanging here, had played against Grishuk, as mentioned, played rook b1. But Anand's new idea is the capture and rook h1. And to be honest, this looks much more dangerous to me than rook b1. White immediately introduces this idea to enter on the back rank and enter black's position. And it's not only rook h8, of course, it's even more importantly intending to put it on h7. And this can get really ugly if the white rook is just entering without any specific counterplay. Karjakin now spends time. If you look at this next move, he took like more than 20 minutes. He obviously needed to remember his preparation, or he was doing it over the board. Or in any case, I think he's doing quite a good job. He gets a tempo on the bishop. Yeah, and the bishop needs to go to g3. You obviously shouldn't give up the e5 pawn. So bishop to g3. And here's a very important moment where again he took a moment and played g5. Of course, the most critical move is knight takes c3, just grabbing the pawn. But obviously, this was still part of Anand's preparation. And I guess only, I mean, even if there was just this reason, the move is very risky. But even if you look at the concrete moves, it turns out that this move might be too greedy. Have a look at this: rook h7, rook g6, cover the pawn, and then f4. Very concrete play, and this starts to look really frightening for black. You cannot grab on g4. Knight f3 is very problematic, as rook g6, f5 is almost instantly losing. Something like that is very simple. And if rook h6, there is just the capture here. And white has made enormous progress with this pawn duel. Well, black is grabbing stuff on the queen side, but well, you don't queen those type of pawns so early or so quickly. And white simply has an attack here with the pawns and the king under pressure. Look at something like that. White can easily enter with the bishop even. The grab on c3 is risky. Maybe it's playable. I mean, a computer might be able to defend that, but I think Karjakin's choice is just better from a practical point of view, and also from a human perspective, as g5 is just for the moment preventing the desired move f4 for white to advance the pawns. So g5 is strategically speaking a fine move. Yeah, here Anand played c4. He just secures the pawn for the moment. He had alternatives. He could have played rook h8 check as well. And after king e7, maybe go for the g-pawn. But here, there is simply knight f4. And this will just lead to simplifications, as white cannot really keep the pawn on e5. Yeah, if he tries to do that with this, there is rook g6, and this is not an endgame you like as white. Yeah, something like that just leads to white having this weak pawn. It's all this is not leading to anything for white. Anand, I think, played it better. He played c4 first, and now Karjakin needs to go to c3. Here, knight f4 is leading to problems, as white is coming with king f3 and will probably just win the f4 pawn, and with it the game. He needs to go here to initiate this counterplay. Yeah, and here in this position, move 25. I'm sorry. Played king f3 first and rook g6. Yeah, here knight a2 is relatively easily dismissed, as this now leads to white breaking through on the queen side. Nothing that black wants. He played rook g6 to cover g5, and now a3. Here, I think, in this situation, move 25 is maybe where Anand's play can be improved upon. Rook h8 check is what I was looking at, and I didn't really come to a completely clear conclusion, but I think white is a bit better, simply because of the better activity. Yeah, and there are concrete reasons. If black goes, he only has two moves, obviously. If he goes to e7, there is rook b8, and something like that. I don't know. It looks tricky to me. White is entering with the rook, and in my book just seems to be somewhat better. Let's say something like that is certainly better for white in some way. I'm not sure how much better it is, but white with the a pawn must be better. This is just not very nice. I meant to just mark the pawns. Yeah, maybe it's really that after the check, there's king d7 that needs to be played to cover the queen side. But here there is rook f8, and what is black doing now? A move like rook g7 is very passive. Do you want to play rook g7? I don't know. In addition, there is a tactical idea here available. White can play also e6 check here. Yeah, the point being that after the capture, I mean, if the king takes,
check,
something like that is quite a problem. Yeah, and c7 is going to fall. If the pawn takes, however, there is bishop e5, which is very nicely double attacking two pieces. It's quite funny that black can save the piece with rook h7, so that this in fact is a blunder.
Check.
But white can play an improving move like this and get g5 next move. And black, I think, is in big trouble here. I'm really not sure what black's defense is after the check, but I'm pretty sure that it is more difficult than what was played in the game. Here black needs to be really careful and has some substantial issues to solve. Anand played a3 in the game, and the problem is that after knight a4, black's knight is relatively quickly coming to e6. And we see that after the next couple of moves. In this kind of setup, black has something that very much looks like a fortress. This weakness is covered. This weakness is covered. f7 can be covered with the king. And black is just marking time and basically does nothing. But how is white going to improve? Black can also, we can put the next couple of moves on the board.
Check.
And here they agreed to a draw. Yeah, it's really a fortress. How is white ever going to break through here? Especially the knight is just an excellent piece in terms of defensive qualities. It keeps g5 protected, c7 protected, and the king is just on d7 or e7 to cover those two pawns. And white has simply nowhere to attack and cannot make any sort of progress. Black is basically just doing nothing and awaits developments, but white has no way to improve. Yeah, not a very exciting game. Maybe I really wish he had a chance here when he played a3 to get more with rook h8, but probably he took a while on that, so he had his reasons, I guess, but I'm not quite sure why he rejected rook h8 check. I believe it, at least from a practical point of view, it is probably the more testing move. Yeah, okay, this after round 6 means that Anand with +2 is still in good shape, of course, while Karjakin is still on -1 and almost out of it. At some point you need to win a game to qualify. So after 6 rounds we will have a rest day tomorrow, and the players certainly can use this day to somewhat gather new strength for the upcoming rounds. All right, thanks for watching.